I am Louis Paul. This is Colors of Prog, Season 6, Episode 20. Today I'm discussing Gypsy, an obscure American band from the 1970s whose first two albums, at least, are considered prog classics by some. I'm pretty sure that many of you have heard of the American band Starcastle, who they had a combination of a Yes, Kansas sound. And they're fondly remembered by progressive rock fans, but it was way too late in the game for Starcastle uh, to really make it big. They tried hard. Most of Starcastle's albums are very good. There's not a lot of them. And some are recently remastered and re-released on CD not too long ago. Today, we'll discuss Gypsy. Now, Gypsy, on the other hand, never even quite reached the level of fandom that Starcastle did, despite having a few charting singles. And there's three, actually, American prog bands that are, I consider, very good and deserve more attention. And the other is Happy the Man, and I'll be discussing them later on. Now, if I were asked to choose between all these bands, while Starcastle wore their Yes influences proudly, Gypsy had a more original and different sound. Organ-drenched songs with guitar work sounding either like Neil Young or Carlos Santana in their prime, I kid you not. Sometimes very complex song arrangements reminiscent of early Chicago. So they had a lot going on. Um, Add to that an occasional Latin funk sound, often carrying, an occasional Latin funk sound courtesy of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young percussionist Joe Layla. So that was interesting. He showed up for the second album. They were originally filmed in Minnesota as the Underbeats in 1962. They gigged a lot, but mostly as a bar band while writing their own original songs. Now they moved out west to California and became the house band at the famed Whiskey A Go Go. True. They honed their chops nightly by opening for other acts or sometimes backing up a solo singer or guitarist who showed up without his or her band. They released a surefire oddity as a debut album, a double album collection of their own songs. It was titled Gypsy on the long gone Metro Media Records. Well, now long gone. It's a pretty impressive feat for a new band. Um, Song Decisions comes in at over 8 minutes. So they wrote lengthy songs. The Visions at 7 minutes and Dead and Gone at over 11 minutes long. Uncommon for the time. Gypsy Queen Part 1 and Part 2 were separated and account for the second vinyl. Uh, it's just amazing songs. Gypsy Queen Part 1 actually charted on the Billboard Top 100. The debut album, also 67 minutes in total of music. So that's pretty wild. The Gypsy's core were Enrico Rosenbaum on guitars, vocals, James Walsh on keyboards and vocals, James Jono on guitars, vocals, Donnie Larson on bass, and James Epstein on drums. In the Garden, the final follow-up, also released by Metro Media, came out in 1971 and is, in my opinion, as good as the debut, although I see some people saying, well, it's not as good as the first album. Again, long song. There's only a single vinyl release this time. As far as you can see, it's over 12 minutes long, and it's a standout organ guitar workout. I think you also might enjoy the song Here in the Garden as well. And there's another good Time Will Make It Better, which is also getting rotation on the Sirius Prog Rock channel. It was nice to see them pulling out Gypsy music. This bad Gypsy. Of interest to Rolling Stones fans, Willie Weeks, seasoned bass player, is now on bass by the second album. He played on Ronnie Wood's first three solo albums and often contributed to Rod Stewart and Jeff Beck albums as a session player. The 1972 Antithesis, don't say that fast, they signed on to the RCA label for that one because Metro Media was being eaten up by another label, the Janus label, which was a short-lived subsidiary of Chess Records. Antithesis, the band's RCA debut, runs just 40 minutes with 12 short songs, rather than the first two albums' occasionally long tracks. Pardon me. A lot of these songs are reduced to radio-friendly 3 and 5 minute songs, rarely longer. And they still sound like the same band Gypsy. Moments of sparkling Hammond organ, sharp guitar work, but maybe a little less progressive. Unlock the Gates, the second album for RCA, and the final Gypsy album for a long time, was released in '73. It's the shortest album at 30 minutes long, 10 songs. But a lot of these songs sound like demos. It's said that substance abuse issues affected some band members. So I don't know. They still sound like Gypsy, but a less committed and more commercial version, if you would allow. The album, Unlock the Gates, also had a terrible album cover. It was a cartoonish, illustrated version of the band members depicted on a cloud wearing angel wings. Well, it most likely didn't help sales. And who were they marketing this to by this time? RCA pretty much gave up on them. Keyboardist, vocalist James Walsh continued the band as the James Walsh Gypsy Band. He released occasional albums and continued touring over the years. That band's single, "Cause It's You Girl," broke through the top 100 singles. So for a brief moment, there was a return. But mostly by that time, his band, the James Walsh Gypsy Band, were playing bars and nightclubs. In 1979, Enrico Rosenbaum, Gypsy's original guitarist and singer, passed due to long-time drug abuse. It has been printed. In 1996, Walsh released an album credited to just Gypsy. And the album was called 20 Years Ago Today. It was released on the Small Metro Records. It featured a few re-recordings of songs from the first two Gypsy albums, but it went unnoticed. By that time, he was the only original member of Gypsy. In 2022, retro music label Sundays entered into a deal to remaster and re-release on vinyl the first two Gypsy albums. Done with the permission and involvement of James Walsh, the first two albums were released in replicas of the original Metro Media albums in gatefold sleeves containing liner notes. And in their initial runs, released on colored vinyl for the collectors. Walsh passed away due to heart failure in 2023 at the age of 74. The Sundays version of the Gypsy albums were released in 2023 and In the Garden in 2024. Postscript. For a time, there was a website, Gypsy Family, and another one, gypsyqueen.net, that no longer seems to exist, neither one. Nowadays, it's nearly impossible to locate the third and fourth Gypsy albums that were released on RCA. But an eBay search found a 4 CD package of CDR burns of the first four albums put together. And the same seller was selling James Walsh singles, promo items, and posters. And this looks to be what primarily remains of the Walsh Gypsy family website. They're very interesting. I highly enjoyed this band. I really like this band, and so I think give some love to Gypsy. They're pretty darn good. That's our show for